The regular season is heating up, new stars are emerging, and that means more opportunities to win up to 25 times your cash on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection on a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. Let it fly to turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Watch your favorite players and get paid doing it this basketball season. See your entries make progress during the game or make new entries for the second half and the fourth quarter. 3-pointers, assists, rebounds, and everything in between are yours for the taking. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Hi guys, quick one before we get into the episode. This episode is sponsored by Zencastr, which is the production suite that I've used from the very beginning of this podcast. And if you're interested in starting your own podcast, hang around at the end of the episode for our 30% discount referral code. Thanks.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
Are your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
Is the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. I'm Jamie, and I'm very excited to be joined today by the wonderful Sandra Sawicka, who is both agent and foreign rights manager over at Marjacq. Hi, Sandra. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
How are you doing?
For having me here. That's very exciting.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You're most welcome. Thanks for coming. I actually had the pleasure of meeting one of your authors recently.
Oh, which one?
I had a lovely chat with Amy McCaw.
Cool. Yeah, she's
author of
lovely.
Mina and the Undead, for anyone listening, at the NYA Lit Festival last month. It was really good. Yeah, she did a really good panel.
Yeah, she is very good. She's also a blogger, so she's very slick and also, a lovely person. So
she is, yes. And the if anyone listening is a fan, the sequel, Mina and the Slayers, is out in September.
yes, ready for Halloween.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, well, it's a theme with the book, so it's
yes.
perfect time.
Yeah. Bringing it back to you,
Mm-hmm.
Agent and foreign rights manager at Marjacq since 2014, is it?
Yes, I think March 2014. I joined right before a London book fair, which was fun.
That's a wild time to join a literary agency.
Yes, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, London Book Fair and Frankfurt Book Fair are two sort of big fairs that kind of publishing calendar hinges on. So I think I had like 2 weeks to learn our entire list to then pitch to other to foreign publishers, which is great actually, because it sort of forces you to do it, and then once you do it, you kind of you just update it with new titles. So.
Were you always an agent and the foreign rights manager?
No, I think, somebody very early on in my kind of publishing career said that publishing careers are very rarely linear. So you start in one department and then you kind of just wander off into the other one. So I actually started at reception at a publisher that no longer exists at the moment. It was Anova. They later became Pavilion, and now they're part of HarperCollins. I think still under Pavilion. And then I went to, I stayed there and did a sales job, sales assistant. Then I went to Michael O'Mara and did foreign rights for the first time. For a bit, and then I joined Marjacq and I became foreign rights sort of exec there. But I also always wanted to be an agent, so they were very lovely and supportive of me building my own lists just from the get go. So
amazing.
Yeah, so that was really really cool of them that they kind of let me run with it along my kind of foreign rights duties. That was really, really great, and really sort of brave of them to kind of let me let me do my own thing from the very, very beginning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess as long as you're doing the main thing that you were there for, which is the foreign rights, like they can see if the agent thing works out, and it did, obviously.
Yeah. But they were also, super supportive of it, and they kind of encouraged me to do it rather than just sort of making me do foreign rights primarily, and then sort of in my spare time, my agenting. It was always sort of from the very beginning. It was kind of maybe 80-20 at the very beginning, and then sort of progressed to being sort of 50-50 on foreign.
Awesome. So it was quite a lateral career path that you took to
absolutely. Which I think it's not that uncommon in publishing at all. I think everyone is slightly, and also it actually gives you a nice overview of the entire process of book production. That you sort of, I really value my time in sales, for example, because I've learned things that I probably wouldn't have had I not worked in sales before. So it's nice. It's nice to kind of learn how different departments tick and what kind of makes it work and how it kind of becomes a cohesive process at the end of it, hopefully.
Yeah. I imagine as an agent as well, that's invaluable kind of lessons, because obviously when you're pitching to an editor, to a publisher, the sales team is going to have a say, and you're knowing kind of how they operate, what they're looking for, is really going to help you in that pitch.
Oh, absolutely. That's kind of one facet of it, that you sort of know how they will think about it while pitching to salespeople in Waterstones and other sort of retailers, but also just how the department works and how they think about, how they look at covers, for example. Sometimes it's a very different process, and especially when you compare it to how foreign covers work. They are completely, even if you look at American covers and UK covers, they most of the time they differ so much, purely because consumers tend to be drawn to different things. We have different aesthetics, and kind of culturally we're kind of programmed to find different things attractive. And so knowing what sales think about a cover and how they will present it to buyers in different retailers, it's invaluable, as you say.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking that you do all of the translation rights for the whole of Marjacq?
Yes, I do.
That sounds like a massive job.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and it isn't. I think, mail merge is my friend. I'm not going to lie. So it's you have to be quite organized, I suppose. And I do love an Excel spreadsheet. So I think once you sort of find the system, and I am a fan of systems as well, it's very manageable. I think it becomes less manageable around book fairs, as I said. That's when it gets a bit when I get a bit ratty with my clients when they take from me. So I think 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after, I tend to not read submissions at all and just focus on the fair. But other than that, for example, summer is pretty relaxed on foreign rights front, because half of European publishers actually have holidays. So it's a 6 weeks time when nothing really moves. So yeah, it sort of it comes in waves.
Yes. Yeah. Ups and downs.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And speaking of submissions, currently open to submissions?
Absolutely. Very much so.
Okay, very exciting. And when it comes to submissions itself, and this is something I ask all of the agents that come on the show, at Marjacq, it's cover letter, 50 pages, synopsis, pretty standard, in line with the sort of industry for the submission. When you open up your inbox and dive into a submission, what order do you go through the component parts, and where do you attribute the most weight?
Yeah, so I'm probably a little bit weird on this front. So I tend to skim read the cover letter, and really I can't stress the importance of actually putting the most important information at the very beginning of your letter. So the the title, a word count, and the genre should really be in the first paragraph, so that when it pops up in my email box, I can see it from the very beginning. So I kind of skim read the blurb and see whether that excites me or what, just a kind of general first impression. I don't read synopsis at all most of the time. I only read synopsis when I'm on the fence of whether I should call it in or not. So if something has quite like a groundbreaking idea, or it says like it has like a immense hook, and the writing is brilliant and I really love it, but I'm not quite sure whether it will deliver on the promise, I will then read the synopsis. But most of the time I actually try not to read it, just because I want to have that sort of first-hand experience of a reader's experience, like without the spoilers, like whether all the kind of the beats of the story, do they hit the right notes or not. If I come into it knowing already what's going to happen, I might be like, well, but this was obvious.
Yeah.
But would I without reading the synopsis? So I try to not be tainted by it. But obviously do submit the synopsis just in case it's that one in 100 situations where I actually want to see whether, it doesn't fall off a cliff
Yes.
midway through. And I would say 98% importance is on the first 3 chapters or 50 pages, whichever is more logical to send.
Yeah,
I think unless the cover letter is abysmal, that will not really sway me either way. It could be the best cover letter in the world, if the writing is not up to a certain standard, then it's not going to be one for me. At the end of the day, like we want books that are amazing and that readers will love. A good cover letter is not going to make that happen.
Okay, yeah. So the cover letter is very much sort of statement of intent. It's just, this is what it is. Get into and then you jump into the pages. Yeah.
I think it's nice when it's laid out nicely, just because when you look at it and it's really dense.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of a short, concise cover letter that just kind of like, as you say, just states what it is, and then once we're sort of done with that, I'm kind of straight into the sample chapters.
And are you sort of interested if the author writes a bit about themselves in the cover letter, or is that?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's probably the only bit that I read quite carefully. It's nice if they include whether they have any sort of accolades or, a short story published in some magazine, or, if it's a thriller set in, I don't know, a lab, and somebody is a marine biologist, then it's nice to know that, they know what they're writing about, because I certainly don't. So, but if somebody is completely green and it's their first attempt, that's also absolutely fine. Just write something about you and what you like to read, for example. That's always a nice kind of icebreaker, if you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, not too long, but just like exactly like a blurb on the book. They're really 3 pages, but they give you a flavor of a person.
Yeah. You want a bit of, you want to know that it's like a genuine person that's either, as you said, like knowledgeable about the field that the book is set in, or if they're just a huge fan of literature and reading and what they like.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And do you have any? So when you start reading, do you have any sort of pet peeves that you come across and you're like, oh, I don't know about this?
How much time do we have? So my first one is probably a bit obscure, but when I say it, you will notice it from now on every time.
I can't unhear this.
So books that begin with the description of the sky. Okay. I don't know why so many people do this. I think my theory is that it comes from a TV film thing, that we sometimes have that kind of horizontal panning in on something thing, but from the sort of macro view into the micro. but it's just so boring. You know, it's so static. It doesn't give me much.
Yeah.
I really like when something is mid action, like mid thing. You know, not a person waking up, obviously, which we all know is a no-no. Something sort of, something just kind of that will unsettle me in a way. So that's definitely my pet peeve. Opening with a big fight scene or like a chase, when we don't actually know someone, the stakes are diminished because we don't really care about that person, the protagonist, presumably. Yeah. So I like something that will leave me with a question, and I don't really care what the question is. It could be what happened next, or who did this, or why did this happen. I really don't. I'm not fussy about whatever the question is. But if I'm left with all the answers, then I don't really need to read on in a way. Yeah, that's kind of like too prescriptive. Obviously, you know, too much exposition. That's kind of like a standard thing. Too much dialogue in the very, like, to the point that it actually looks like a screenplay. Yeah, that's probably not great. Obviously, if it's really messy and kind of full of typos, that doesn't bode very well. I always like to say that, you know, treat it as you wouldn't come into a job interview wearing tracksuit bottoms and a ratty t-shirt. Yeah, that's the same thing with this. You want to present your best self and your best manuscript. So make sure it's clean. If it has like a 1 or 2 typos in 50 pages, I'm not going to reject it on that basis. Yeah. But if it's, you know, if it doesn't have capital letters and no commas, for example, then that will make me, you know, a little bit angry. Yes. So yeah, I think these are the kind of the main pet peeves in the sample itself. Mm-hmm. In the cover letter, it's probably mostly like, you know, when people compare themselves to Dostoevsky or
have you had someone compare themselves to Dostoevsky?
Oh my God, you'd be surprised. So many. Dostoevsky or Stephen King are the probably the most common ones.
I've heard Stephen King a lot.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird how, you know, completely different end of the spectrum those two guys are. But so many times.
Okay. How do you feel about comparisons in the cover letter? Is that useful?
It is useful, but it could work against you sometimes. So if somebody pitches something that is, you know, like within my, as much as I hate that word, like that saying, but like in my wheelhouse, sure, then great. You know, I will probably maybe get to it a bit quicker if something sounds really exciting. But also if somebody gives you a comp like, I don't know, Anna Karenina in space, which is so ridiculous, you know, it's just, how does that even work? Then I'm gonna think that it's just not, it doesn't know what it is. And if it doesn't know what it is, then I won't know what it is, and I won't know who the editors who might want to read it are. So that's something to think about. If don't try and force comps that just wouldn't work. Yeah. Because it's more confusing than helpful at this stage.
Yeah, because if you're going to make a kind of big comp, especially if it uses like a classic, say something like Lord of the Flies in space, it needs to ask a question so that then you or whoever that's being sent to says, oh, I wonder what that looks like, but understanding that it could work.
Yes. And, you know, it's as with everything in publishing, there is no fast rule about that. I think a book that recently sold was a queer Titanic in space or something, you know, which I guess it could work if it's, you know, on the spaceship. Actually, no.
Titanic in space makes sense.
I take it back. Actually, that could work. But on paper, when I read it, I was like, "What? There's too much going on there." But no. I can now see how that.
Now we think about it, makes quite a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, I think maybe there were zombies thrown in actually there. There was something that like really tripped me as I was reading it because I remember. I think it was like a Publishers Weekly announcement, and I read it 3 times. And I was just like, but yeah, so keep it kind of simple but intriguing is probably the short advice on that one.
Yeah. But as you say, there's no rule. Sometimes these mad, insane comps get through. I know there's a movie called Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. So, anything can work.
Yes. I mean, it's publishing. It's very much a subjective industry. So it all depends on, whether the taste of the person that you send it to aligns with your own.
Yes,
and
exactly.
There's quite a lot of editors and quite a lot of agents, so the chances are, there is a person out there that might think, "Oh, that sounds really great."
Yeah, you just got to find the right match.
Yeah.
So that's the submissions. That's the early part of the submissions process. The next step. So let's say, and I'm curious about this, is let's say that you've got a good manuscript, you've requested the full, it's good, and you're considering offering representation, which I presumably that means that you're looking to either meet with them in person or do a sort of online video call or something.
Yes. So it would be, ideal to have a chat purely because, it's a long haul thing. It's usually not for a month, but it's for years, and it would be nice to see whether we actually get on. We kind of understand each other. It's a very rare situation when, even if I love a manuscript, I wouldn't suggest any changes. So I always want to make sure that the author is comfortable with making those changes and kind of we're on the same page where we see where we see the manuscripts going and what it kind of is to become. And just generally whether we kind of like each other, as cheesy as that sounds. But also I do have authors I've never actually spoken to on the phone just because they are uncomfortable and they live somewhere far away and they prefer emailing, and so that's fine. I'm happy to kind of take the author's lead on that. But ideally, yes, if they live sort of London-ish, or if it's sort of an hour away on the train, I get that trip, or as you say, Zoom or phone call are also viable options. So then we have a chat and we see whether this could work. If it does, I send a client letter, which is like a 1-pager document, just kind of a statement of intent where what my kind of duties as an agent would be and what our commission is, and sort of terms of how to terminate it if we don't think it works. So it's a 3-paragraph thing.
Yeah.
Very standard.
Just laying out this is what the deal is, and like here's the get out of jail, here's exactly. This, that, the other.
I think people feel much more comfortable when that it's sort of known from the get-go.
Yeah, you're not trapped.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a kind of binding document that you don't have to sign it in blood. So, so that's kind of the next step.
Yeah. So when you do meet with them, I mean, beyond the manuscript and the writing itself, you said it's very rare, but are there other factors that you take into account when deciding whether to offer representation? Say maybe like a social media presence?
For nonfiction, I would. I think it's slightly different, and there is more need to have a platform in nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's also not a prerequisite, and I wouldn't. If somebody had an amazing idea for a nonfiction book and had no social media presence, I would still go for it.
Yeah,
I loved it enough. But I mean, it certainly helps, as you say, with Amy McCall. I think her social media presence has done wonders for Rena. So it's always nice to have it, but it's like
A bonus.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a bonus.
Yeah.
It's not something it will kind of be all or end all thing. Another thing I usually ask is what is their next thing.
Okay.
So if, say, somebody wrote a crime novel and that's the one I love and I want to sign, and then they were to write middle grade, fiction.
Yeah.
I might flag it that it might not be, or maybe maybe not middle grade because that's still something I do. But if they said, "Oh, I'm writing a spiritual guide in the vein of Paulo Coelho,"
Okay.
I would that would give me pause. Like I would probably have to be quite honest and say, okay, that's just absolutely not something I would do ever.
Right.
But if it's something that is still within the realm of my kind of interest, and then of course that's great. But I like to know what's sort of on the horizon.
Would it sort of worry you if you were talking to a prospective client and they said they didn't really have any ideas for a follow-up novel?
Yeah, I guess it would slightly worry me, but also not to the point. Unless it was a series, like a first in a series, and they said like, "Oh, I have no idea where to go with it," then it would be like, "Why did you write the series then?" But no, I think it would slightly worry me, but not to the point that I wouldn't offer a representation if I really loved the book, because there are writers who write really slowly, and that's also fine. I'm sure if it was the next Secret History, Donna Tartt didn't write another book for 10 years, and I'm sure her agent is pretty happy with her.
I imagine so.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and, it would be a shame, but also I would understand.
But I mean, in my experience, all the authors that I know have at least 5, 10, maybe 50 more ideas for books written down in various notepads and things.
Yeah, exactly.
So submissions are open. Are there any particular stories or character types that you're looking to add to your list this year?
Good question. I really like to find something quite gothic-y, but not too gory, like just sort of just kind of creepy and spooky, but not to the there is no such genre, but it's sort of like a cozy horror thing.
Okay.
Like the thing that it's like a story told at a campfire, that kind of atmospheric thing. I'd love something like that. I really like small town mysteries. I'd love one that would give me the kind of the sort of community secrets feel.
Okay.
Anything kind of high concept but not too far into the future would be nice. Okay. What else? I really like I would like a crime novel, but one that does something slightly different. And I don't want to be too prescriptive on that, because I don't be surprised, right? Yeah, I don't really know what I'm looking for until I see it, The kind of strong voice, I suppose, like a quite different protagonist would be great, but just something that would give me pause and in a good way.
Yeah. Okay. And anyone listening thinking about subbing to Sandra, you can go on the Marjacq website and there is a list of things that Sandra represents, a list of things that she does not. Amusingly, mixed in amongst the genres of things you don't represent is beautiful writing with no plot.
I think we all know what that means, right? It's the kind of literary novel that I'm not gonna give you examples, but I was going to, but actually no. The ones that if somebody asks you what's it about, you're not able to actually say. Or you've immediately forgotten a month later. So yeah, not for me.
And that brings us to the final question, which is, Sandra, if you were stranded on a desert island with a single book, which book would you take?
Probably actually The Secret History, just because I've read it only once so far, and I've always wanted to reread it, and I just don't have time. And it's quite a chunky book, so you need a chunky book for your desert island situation. I think it would definitely be a reread. I wouldn't want anything. I would want something familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But
just so you know, you don't want to risk taking something that you think you might like, but actually, oh God, I don't like this.
Yeah, if it's terrible, if it's like a Paulo Coelho wannabe, then
so you're not taking The Alchemist?
Oh my God, I've read it. I've read The Alchemist, so it that criteria would be fulfilled. But Jesus, no.
Okay. Oh, well, amazing. I mean, Donna Tartt is fantastic, and as you say, she's good enough that she can take 10 years between books, and we'll all still buy the next one. Thank you so much, Sandra, for coming on and sharing all of your experience and chatting to us about your work.
No, absolute pleasure. Thank you for talking to me and inviting me on.
Oh, it's been great. It's been lovely. And for everyone listening who wants to keep up with what Sandra's doing, you can follow her on Twitter at SANSAWICKA. If you're looking to submit to Sandra or anyone else at Marjacq, head over to the website. Make sure you read through the guidelines. Make sure you read what the agents are looking for and what they're not looking for. Diana Beaumont, also of Marjacq, has been on this podcast. You can go back and listen to that episode if you're interested in subbing to her. To make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow us on Twitter at Right and Wrong UK and on Instagram at Right and Wrong Podcast. You can also follow us on Facebook. Thanks again, Sandra, and thanks to everybody listening. We'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks for hanging around until the end. If you're interested in starting your own podcast but aren't really sure what that looks like, I can't recommend Zencastr enough. It's so simple to host, record, and download your podcast with, and it even has a built-in transcription AI. It functions entirely in the internet browser, which means all your guests have to do is click on a link and they'll be brought into the conversation. If you click on the link in the description, you'll get 30% off the first 3 months. All you have to do is click on the link in the description. Thanks again for supporting the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.